Hey, good morning, Real Life. It's great to see you here today. I want to welcome everybody. So glad you're here, whether you are watching us online. There's many people watching us from all around the world. I want to welcome Chicago for one, Sylmar for another, Kansas. So great to have you. And for those of you that are watching outside, welcome. Bundle up. It's chilly out there. And over, obviously, in Simi Valley and our Canyon Country campus, too. We're just so glad that you guys are with us. And as we kick off this brand new series. So let me give you a little bit of background for what we're about to do over the next 4 weeks. Last year, we did a series called Let It Go, and myself and three other pastors from rather large churches in the Southern California area got together and said, what if we did a message together? All our churches did the same message or the same series. We rotated around and taught the same message to several different churches. That can be really unifying, can be really helpful. So what do we talk about? Well, let's talk about stuff that we all need to let go. And so we talked about things like anxiety and fear and guilt and envy, and it became one of our most buzzed about series that we've done. It became very popular. It was downloaded a lot, and we had 3 guest teachers, and you guys all downloaded their message more than mine. So thank you very much, everybody. I love you too. So anyway, I'm working through that with a therapist, but I'm here, and we decided, you know what? There were 4 things we talked about over the course of a month that was so, impactful for all of us to let go of. And over a few months ago, we thought, there's still stuff we need to let go. And what if we did it again? What if we, did Let It Go 2, and we dealt with 4 new topics? And so that's what we're going to do, and I get to kick it off today. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about 4 things that we all need to let go of. Now, some of these things you're going to think, oh, man, that is not me, but I know somebody who is. We'll share that with them. And for some of you, you're going to think, I'm not sure if that's me. Guess what? It is you. And everybody around you knows it, and so they're going to be sharing it with you. So just go ahead and lean in and learn from this and think about, how does that impact me? How is that impacting my life, my family, my relationship with God? And I think what we're going to do over the course of these next 4 weeks is we're going to get rid of a lot of stuff that we don't need, especially as we move into the holiday season, especially as we move towards Christmas. We don't want to be dragging all this stuff to the Thanksgiving table. We don't want to be dragging all this stuff to the Christmas tree. So let's get rid of this stuff now and get ready for the best Christmas season we've ever had. So if you miss a week, make sure you catch up online. You can watch it through Facebook Live, which some of you are doing right now. You can share that as well, and make sure that you're here every single weekend. All right, today, I want to kick us off by talking about something that you may not see as a huge issue, but it can be a big issue. And it's really kind of an issue that's sweeping the nation that we all kind of deal with at some level in our life. And it seems so subtle, but let me give you a few examples of when it begins to kind of pop up in your life. It happens when you're looking on social media and you see a picture like this. Okay, the pilot hanging out the window, taking the selfie, and you think, come on, all right, that's not real, that's not possible, that can't be. And you kind of just begin to think, not a real thing, all right? Here's a second thing. You are texting with somebody, and they say, yeah, let's get together soon. I'll get back with you soon. And in your mind, you think, there's no way you will. Because I've sent that same text to people and just known I'm never getting back with them, but let's push it a little bit longer, right? And so you just assume that it's never going to actually happen. And it happens for every guy especially who watches a chick flick, and you think, that's not possible. Maybe your reaction is a little bit like our friend Lego Batman. Take a look at this.
You complete me.
Shut up. You had me at hello.
I love it.
Gotta love Lego Batman. And we've all been in those movies, right, guys? Where you just go, come on, this is ridiculous. And maybe some of you have lived long enough, you've had enough broken hearts, you think that is just not reality. And here's the thing that all of us are kind of wrestling with, that we don't often talk about it or think about it, and that is this: cynicism. Cynicism. It doesn't seem like it's very harmless. Doesn't seem like it's a big deal. It feels more like a defense mechanism. It feels more like a personality trait. It feels more like just a reaction. We say things like, that'll never happen, or I'll believe it when I see it, or there's just no way, or it'll always be this way. And let's be honest, none of us really started out to be that cynical. It just slowly began to happen. And we're all a little bit cynical, right? I mean, that's just the way we are. And so what's the big deal? I got to be honest with you, I wrestle with this as well. You know, cynicism for me has just become kind of this natural defense mechanism, and here's why. Because you have enough things go wrong, and you think, that'll never go right in the future. Let me give you an example. Going through the drive-thru. Now, I am sympathetic to those that work the drive-thru because I myself did a period of time at McDonald's, and I have worked the drive-thru. I get it. Sometimes they make mistakes. But one particular time, and I've shared this story before, I was racing to get somewhere, and I grabbed my coffee mug, that's the thermal kind, you know, with the little screw-on lid, off of my office desk, hopped in the car, ran over to a place to just get a cup of coffee through the drive-thru. I won't tell you the name, but it's often referred to as $5. And so I'm going through the drive-thru there, and I tell them, I just want to fill up my coffee mug, and I've got it here. But I realize it's been sitting on my desk for a long time. That's right. And I don't want to open the lid and see what lies beneath. So I know I can handle it because, you know, it'll be fine. And I just hand it to him, and I say, would you just be so kind as to rinse that out with some hot water? Absolutely, sir, absolutely. So they go away for a little bit. They come back. They hand me my cup of coffee. Fantastic. I get out on the 5, take a big drink of it. Big wad of mold right there, right on the kisser. Yeah, what do you do when you're going 80 miles an hour on the 5 and you just, you know, ingested mold? So at that moment, I get a little cynical about what they're going to do with my coffee mug there at the drive-thru. And you wouldn't blame me. Maybe you've had a situation like that. You just get a little bit cynical about those situations. I'm cynical when it comes to sports. And those of you that are avid sports fans, you feel this pain too. And many of you know that I am a diehard, lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan. No one chooses that. No one chooses that. Go Chiefs. I heard you up there. Because you just, you know, it's like it's predestined upon you. You are a Chiefs fan, and you're just going to suffer through it because we haven't been to the Super Bowl, let alone won it, since 1972. And I was one then, and that was awesome, okay? I remember that day. No, seriously, I've been waiting my whole life. And every year, they seem to make a few moves and get a little better. This year, they're really good. And some of you are already saying, this is their year. And I'm thinking, oh, you don't know what I know, okay? You don't know how we can absolutely collapse. For instance, last year, we were in the playoffs, home field advantage. We're playing at home. We're up by 21 points at halftime. And all of you are texting me, this is it. This is your year. They look great. And I'm thinking, there is just no way I'm replying to that text. It is way too early, okay? Not until the absolute last second will I believe that we can actually win. And guess what? We found a way to lose that game. I told you so. And the cynicism is a way to cope when you're a Chiefs fan. And some of you know what that's like. If you're a Clippers fan, God bless you. All right, so anyway, that's just kind of the way that I've dealt with that. Now, here's another area. Sometimes people are so kind as to tell me, hey, I really love that book that you wrote, and I appreciate that. That is so nice of you. But here's why I get a little bit cynical. I wrote a book several years ago that is now out of print, and a few months ago, I thought, I need to find a copy of that book because there's some stuff in there I don't have on my computer, but I need it for something that I'm doing. And I couldn't find a copy of it, and so I went on Amazon, and I found a copy of it, and I bought it. And when I got it and I opened it up, it was a book I had signed. Hold on, to a staff member. I kid you not. They are no longer with us, all right? I mean, who does that, you know? I think, really? You really enjoyed that book, did you? That's great. How much could that have brought you? But anyway, that's a whole other line of thinking. And you have enough of these moments happen, and you think, do I trust anybody? Do I trust anything? Will anything ever work out the way that I hope it will? And you just get a little bit cynical. Now, let me give you the pattern we go through and see where you are on this progression. The first stage is you're just simply surprised by life. You're young, you're an idealist, you're brand new in love, you got a brand new baby, or you just assume that everything's going to be great. I'm going to be the best parent ever. I'm going to be the best married couple ever. We're going to never have the fights that my parents did or anybody else does because we complete each other, right? This is going to be great. And then you have something happen that you go, wow, I did not see that coming. And it just makes you a little bit jaded. This is kind of the American Idol moment. Where the person goes in and tries out, and a judge has to be the very first person to tell them, I'm sorry, but you cannot sing. And they're devastated, and they bleep them out all over the place because they don't know how to handle it. They're surprised by life, okay? It's just the way it is. Then you move into the next stage, which is hurt by others. Somebody breaks your heart, somebody leaves you, somebody doesn't live up to your expectations for them, and they don't do what they say, and eventually you move from this phrase of trust but verify all the way to trust no one. And then you get into this third stage, this gnawing negativity, this assumption that everything is going to go wrong. Now, you and I, we call it a defense mechanism. You call it being a realist, maybe even a pessimist. But the reality is, you've become cynical. I think about a time in our life group years ago. There was a family in our group that was going through some tough times. And so we rallied around them, we raised up some money, and we gave it to them. We helped them move into a different place that would be more affordable for them. A family in our church even gave them one of their vehicles. And then soon after that, they left our church because they weren't getting their needs met. Really. And you begin to think, is that the way everybody is when you do something nice for them? In fact, Carey Nieuwhof says it this way, that cynicism begins not because you don't care, but because you do. And all of us in here have had moments where you've cared for somebody, you tried to help somebody, you wanted the best for them, but it didn't work out the way that you'd hoped, planned, or they hurt you in the process. And you've just become cynical with life. Can I show you just kind of what it sounds like? The cynic sounds like this. Of course it is. It's raining today. Oh, of course it is. We had a picnic plan. The boss is doing, inspections today. Oh, of course he is. I'm not prepared. Pop quiz today. Oh, of course it is. It's just this constant negativity about life in general. The scriptures say that the Lord blesses us and our cup overflows. The optimist says, look at all the blessing. The pessimist says, there's going to be a mess today. That's the way you look at it, right? The cup overflows. And you just become that cynical, of course it is kind of person. And it's just about life. Sometimes it happens about relationships. And we start using this phrase. The cynic says, it will never, or it will always. Our marriage will never be good. Our kids will always struggle with that. It will always be this way. It will never get better. And you just always begin to let that be their guiding principle in your life. The cynic says, God would never. And the cynic allows their cynicism to begin to taint their relationship with God. And it says over and over again, God would never forgive me. God would never want me to. God would never allow that. God is against me. So let me ask you, are you a cynic? In fact, let's just put it on a scale, all right? If the cynic is Eeyore, all right, always down on himself, and the positive person is Tigger, okay, the person you love to be around in the morning, all right, where are you on that chart? Where are you on the cynic scale? Now, I know that we live in a world that there are so many reasons for us to be cynical. When you look around and you think, oh, this is going wrong, and that's going wrong, and this is bad, and all of us love to talk about, oh, man, the economy is doomed, and our school systems are in trouble, and can't trust anybody, and the trouble with kids these days, and don't even get me started on the teenagers, and when I was their age, and the government is spraying poison in the air, and there's chemtrails everywhere, and we're all sneezing, and the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and nobody can stop it. And you get all worked up about that, and I get it. The problem is we begin to turn that on ourselves. And we get cynical about what God wants to do in our life. We get cynical about hope that we could find. We get cynical about our relationship with God. And we get cynical about our relationships with each other. There's no joy. There's no sense of wonder. There's no hope. And the reality is there are a lot of good things going on. The reality is that God is up to some incredible things. The reality is that there are amazing things happening. It just depends on where you look. It's a little bit like the difference between a vulture and a hummingbird. What's a vulture look for all day long? Something that's dead. What's a hummingbird look for all day long? Something that's sweet. And guess what? They each find what they're looking for. Now, you might be thinking that's just a cheesy pastor illustration, and you would be right. That's what I thought when I downloaded it this week. But it's actually rooted in Scripture. Take a look at what King Solomon said along those lines. If you search for good, you will find favor. But if you search for evil, it's going to find you. You want to be negative, you want to be miserable, you can search for it and you can find it. But if you search for the good, you can find that as well. Now, let me just say this to everybody in here, everybody watching online who considers yourself a follower of Jesus. We have no reason to be cynical. The gospel message of Jesus coming back from the dead and promising to do that for us as well should rid us of cynicism at every part of our life because we have hope. And I don't mean wishful thinking, but hopeful trust. We just spent 8 weeks talking about how we can have joy in every situation. And I got a feeling there were some of us going through that series going, not for me, maybe for them. I got no hope. I got no reason. I got no joy. And the cynicism has taken over. What could we do to get rid of that? Well, there's a guy that we read about in the Jewish scriptures, in the Old Testament, that's the first half of our Bible. And he's a guy that is the historical second king of Israel, and his name is David. And we refer to him as King David sometimes. But if there's anybody who went through the gamut of emotions, from highs to lows, if there's anybody who could have been cynical, it was this guy. I mean, at one point, he's a shepherd out in the middle of nowhere, and somebody shows up and says, "You're going to be king." Well, now he's waiting to be king, and while he's waiting, he's having to sit there and go, "When will this happen? When will this happen?" And nobody believes him, and he says, "You got to wait till the other king dies," so he's waiting and waiting and waiting, and then finally he shows up and he kills this giant named Goliath, and everybody's talking about David. And all the press is about David, and so everything's going great. So the king invites him to live in the palace. And then when that's going good, the king tries to kill him. And then he goes on the run, and finally he's made king. Then after becoming king, his son tries to overthrow him and take his throne. This seesaw back and forth of good and bad continues to happen throughout David's life. You look at a guy like that and you think, it would be easy to be cynical if I were David. And when you read his prayer journals, which are also included in the Jewish scriptures, which are just prayers that he wrote down in this collection called Psalms, or the book of Psalms, he writes some of the most honest prayers you could ever pray. In fact, for anybody starting out praying, just go to that book and just pray those out loud. You'll be amazed how much they line up with how you feel. But I want us to take a look at one psalm that he writes because it has so much to do with how we deal with cynicism and how we can be free of it. Look what he says here in Psalm 13. How long, Lord? You sense the urgency here? How long will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? This phrase, hide your face, you know what that word or those three words are kind of summed up as one word as? It's cursed. You ever felt cursed? It's October. Halloween's coming. You're putting stuff out in the lawn. You ever think, this is my life? All right? I am just cursed. I can't believe it. The car broke down. The washing machine quit. You know, your fifth grader came in last night and said, I got to build a Mayflower before tomorrow. How much worse can it get, you know? You just feel cursed. And David says, boy, that is me, God. And how long will you forget me? You see what he's doing there? This is the thing we do when we're cynics. We blame. God, it's your fault. Or maybe your blame is it's somebody else's fault. Maybe it's your ex's fault. Maybe it's your spouse's fault. Maybe it's your kid's fault. Maybe it's your boss's fault, but it's somebody else's fault. Your problems are never yours. They're somebody else's. And David's right there with you. How long, God, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face? And look what he says next. How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? And you know, those phrases of worry and sorrow and wrestle hearts and all that, that is worry and anxiety. That's that feeling you get in the middle of the night that keeps you up. And then he says, how long will my enemy triumph over me? That is this, it's all their fault, and they're all laughing at me. You ever had that thought before? Everybody knows what I'm going through, and they think so bad of me. It doesn't matter how many happy face pictures I put on Instagram, they know my life's a wreck right now. And God, how long will you allow this to happen? And he's still blaming others and blaming God. And then he says this, look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes. I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him. And my foes will rejoice when I fail. This phrase, sleep in death, you know what this means? This does not mean actual physical death. This means a word that we are very accustomed to today, depression. How long will I live in this state of depression? Everyone will think bad of me. Everyone will look down at me. Here's the bottom line. It's others' fault, and God is not interested. And we've all thought that before. That's when cynicism begins to take hold of our heart, and we think it's everybody else's fault, and God doesn't care. So let me ask you, who are you blaming? Let's just name it. Get it out there. Who are you blaming? Is it somebody from your past? Is it somebody in your present? Is it somebody dead and gone and they don't even have a chance to say they're sorry? Is it your blame of God and what you think he should be doing? Name that before God. God, I'm cynical about life. I'm cynical about faith. I'm cynical about love. I'm cynical about me, and I blame fill in the blank. And I wonder if you're even interested. That's where David is. And I don't know how long it took for him to get from that verse to the next verse. But the next verse is when he begins to discover how to get out of this pit of despair. But I trust in your unfailing love. In other words, God, I don't always understand what you're doing, but I trust your heart. I don't always know why you allow certain things to happen, but I know you'll win in the end. God, I don't always understand the way my life unfolds and why people do some of the things they do to me and why I react the way that I do, but I know as I look through my history and history itself, you can be trusted. You can be proven faithful. So I will trust in your unfailing love. And my heart rejoices in your salvation. That you have saved me, and you will one day take me to a place where there's no chance of cynicism, because I will live by your side forever. And I will sing of the Lord's praise. For he, catch this is key. For he what? Will be good to me? Because all of us wonder about that. But instead he says, you know what I remember? He has been good to me. The way out of cynicism is you remember the good to have hope for the future. And we don't always know God's plans, but we can trust his heart. Even on the cross, Jesus cries out to his Father, my God, why have you forsaken me? And we've had those thoughts, but Jesus still trusts his Father. You want to know a great cure for cynicism? For those of us that wonder if I can even remember the good things in the past or even not sure what those things are, one simple turn can change your perspective on cynicism and get you to begin to look at things differently. And that is this word, curiosity. You think, what does that have to do with anything? The cynic already believes things are destined for doom. Cynicism says, of course it is. But curiosity says, I wonder why it is. In other words, when somebody's being recklessly rude or mean or oppressive or even abusive to you, rather than just saying, of course it is, God's against me, what if you just stopped and said, I wonder why they are that way? Because as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. Curiosity changes the cynicism. That impacts our relationship with others. Cynicism says it will never, it will always. But curiosity says, what if it got better? This marriage that we're working on, rather than just bail, rather than just quit, what if we decided to put the same money and attention it would take to get a divorce into our marriage? What if it got better? Cynicism says God would never. But curiosity says, you know what? God just might. God just might. And when you look at David's prayer he prays in Psalm 13, and you fast forward just 10 more prayers, David is in a totally different state because of this change in the way he views his cynicism. Take a look at what he writes. Even if you've never been to church before, odds are you have probably heard this prayer before because it was at a wedding or a funeral or something you saw on somebody's wall. But here's what David writes. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. And he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Does that sound like a cynic to you? For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy, or goodness and love, will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now, what if we took out of that beautiful prayer all of the references to what God has done or what God will do? Look what we're left with. I shall be in want. Me, my soul. I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and I will fear evil. In the presence of my enemies, all the days of my life. Now let me ask you, which prayer would you rather pray? The cynic stops looking at all the darkness. The curious starts looking at our Father. When my oldest daughter was 1 year old, we had just moved to California, and so we did what everybody does when they have a 1-year-old and they just moved to California. We went to Disneyland, okay, with the other 500 million strollers. And so we're over there, you know, in the kids' area, and we're riding all the rides that she could ride and riding with her and having a great time. We decided to get in line and ride a ride that we'd never ridden before called Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And I did not know what Mr. Toad's Wild Ride would be, but apparently Mr. Toad takes a trip to hell. Because it is a terrifying ride. All right, I don't know what's going on in there or what this guy has done, but it's scary. And so we get into this ride, and it's quickly becoming quite terrifying. And my daughter's looking around, and my wife looks at me, and she goes, just act happy. And so we just start smiling, and isn't that funny? Look at that funny toad over there. Look at him, and look at that. Is that Satan? I don't know, but let's just keep going. And so we're just laughing it up and yucking it up as we go, and she keeps looking at us, and she's fine. Because she wasn't looking at all the stuff around. She's just looking at us. Years later, my same daughter, she's 13, I take her on a trip to Ecuador to visit some of the mission work that we've been doing over there. And while we're there, we get a chance to go out and visit an island off the coast there where they're building a church that we get to be a part of and sponsoring kids that so many of you were a part of. And they put us on this boat, and we're, skipping across the water trying to get over there. We're going really fast. I can't figure out why we're going so fast. And I see a couple other boats kind of flanking us on the side as we're going. And I look over to our guide and I said, what are those boats for? And he goes, oh, that's the Navy. I said, the Navy? Why is the Navy here? And he said, well, a lot of pirates around here. Well, that wasn't in the brochure. I mean, I drug my daughter out here and we're about to have a I am the captain moment, and my wife's going to kill me. But here again, I just thought, going to act happy. This is great. Lindsay's looking at me. It's so fun. Yeah. Just kept on going. She wasn't looking at all that. She was looking at me. This past summer when she had to go through major surgery and have her spleen removed, we're going to the hospital. My wife and I we're nervous. But we are praying and talking with Lynn and just telling her, you know what, it's going to be great. It's going to be fine. God's got you. Got a great surgeon. Everything's going to be fine. And she was laughing and joking and so at ease. Because she wasn't looking at her surroundings. She's just looking at her parents. Can I show you this quote I came across this week? Both the child and the cynic walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The cynic focuses on the darkness. The child focuses on the shepherd. What are you focused on right now? Who's wronged you? Maybe we ought to focus on who leads us. I'm going to ask you just to bow your heads and close your eyes for a second. Everybody inside, outside, those of you watching online, let's just take a moment. For all of you right now that you just feel like you're cynical about life and you're blaming somebody, would you just right now between you and God, just say that name to God? He knows. But just tell him that you know too. Just get that out there to him. That's who I'm blaming, God. For some of you, you're just cynical about faith. You're blaming God. And he knows. But let him know you know. God, I'm low on faith right now. God, I don't know what to think about you right now. God, I don't even know if I believe you're there. And just say that to him right now. God, for all of us right now, we know what it's like to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and we know what it's like to be cynical about the outcome. But God, today's the day. We want to let it go, and we want to shift our attention to the shepherd who leads us. God, we're praying that you lead us to greener pastures, but even if you don't, my hope is in you alone, God. We will trust you. You've been faithful, and we know you will be. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.